The Type B-1 submarine, also called I-15 class submarine, was the first group of boats of the Type B cruiser submarines built for the Imperial Japanese Navy during the 1940s. In total 20 were built, starting with I-15, which gave the series their alternative name. Design and description. The Type B submarines were derived from the earlier KD-6 subclass of the Kaida class and were equipped with an aircraft to enhance their scouting ability. They displaced 2,631 tons surfaced and 3,713 tons submerged. The submarines were 108.7 meters long, had a beam of 9.3 meters and a draft of 5.1 meters. They had a diving depth of 100 meters. For surface running, the boats were powered by two 6,200 brake horsepower diesel engines, each driving one propeller shaft. When submerged, each propeller was driven by a 1,000 horsepower electric motor. They could reach 23.6 knots on the surface and 8 knots underwater. On the surface, the B-1s had a range of 14,000 nautical miles at 16 knots. Submerged, they had a range of 96 nm at 3 knots. The boats were armed with 6 internal bow 53.3 cm torpedo tubes and carried a total of 17 torpedoes. They were also armed with a single 14 cm deck gun and two single mounts for 25 mm Type 96 anti-aircraft guns. In the Type Bs, the aircraft hangar was fed into the base of the conning tower. A single catapult was positioned on the forward deck. Late in the war, some of the submarines had their aircraft hangar replaced, to replace it with an additional 14 cm gun. In 1944, I-36 and I-37 had their aircraft hangar and catapult removed so that they could carry 4 I-10-man torpedoes, with I-36 later being further modified to carry 6. Service. The series was rather successful, especially at the beginning of the war. I-17 shelled an oil field up the beach from Santa Barbara and damaged a pump house in Elwood in February 1942. She was sunk by the New Zealand trawler Tui and 2 U.S. Navy aircraft off Noumea on 19 August 1943. On 15 September 1942, I-19 fired 6 torpedoes at the aircraft carrier Wasp, 2 of which hit the carrier and destroyed it. The 4 remaining torpedoes went on for several thousand meters and hit another carrier force, damaging the battleship US North Carolina, and sinking the destroyer US O'Brien. She was sunk by the US Redford on 25 November 1943. I-25 conducted one of the few attacks on the continental United States in September 1942. She was sunk by destroyer US Patterson off the New Hebrides on 3 September 1943. I-26 sank the U.S. Army chartered merchant ship SS Cynthia Olson about 1,000 miles northeast of Pearl Harbor on 7 December 1941, causing 35 fatalities. She also crippled the aircraft carrier Saratoga with 1 torpedo hit on 31 August 1942. On 13 November, she also sank the cruiser Juno. She was sunk in action off Leyte in October 1944. I-27 between June 1942 and February 1944 sank Iron Crown while it was en route Whyalla Newcastle, sank Fort Mumford and SS Montanan in the Indian Ocean, sank the Liberty ship SS Sambridge and finally the SS Kedai Vishmal near the Maldives on February 12, 1944. This last strike was her undoing, as she was sunk by escorting British warships. I-29 was used to conduct personnel and technology exchanges with Germany. Its most famous exchange is U-180 transferee of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, leader of the Indian independence movement and Indian National Army, who was going from Berlin to Tokyo, and his adjutant Abid Hassan. Losses: I-15 was sunk off San Cristobal on the 2nd of November 1942 by destroyer Usmakala. I-19 was sunk by US Radford the 25th of November 1943. I-21 made her final report on the 27th of November 1943 off the Gilbert Islands, following which she was never heard from again. At least one source attributes her sinking to aircraft from escort carrier US Chenango on the 29th of November 1943. I-23 was lost in February 1942, following a final report made from off Oahu. I-25 was sunk by US Patterson on the 25th of August 1943. I-27 was sunk by the British destroyers HMS Paladin and HMS Petard off Diu Atoll on the 12th of February 1944 after it had sunk the troop ship SS Khedive Ismail with the loss of about 1,300 lives. She was first rammed by Paladin, then torpedoed by Petard. I-28 was sunk by submarine US Tautog south of Truk on the 17th of May 1942. I-29 was sunk by US Sawfish in Balintang Channel on the 26th of July 1944. I-30 was the first Japanese submarine to reach Europe under the Yanagi missions, but she was sunk by a mine off Singapore on the 13th of October 1942. I-31 was sunk by destroyers US Edwards and US Frazier off Attu on the 12th of May 1943. I-32 was sunk by the destroyer escort US Manlove and the sub-chaser US Kanastachar south of Wathia on the 24th of March 1944. I-33 was lost during sea trials in the Inland Sea on the 13th of June 1944. I-34 was sunk by submarine HMS Taurus off Penang on the 13th of November 1943. I-35 was sunk by destroyers US Meade and US Frazier off Tarawa on the 23rd of November 1943. I-37 was sunk by destroyer escorts US Conklin and US McCoy Reynolds off Leyte on the 19th of November 1944. I-38 was sunk by destroyer US Nicholas near Yap on the 12th of November 1944. I-39 was sunk by destroyer US Boyd in the Gilberts on the 26th of November 1943. Altogether, the Type B submarines are credited with sinking 56 merchant ships for a total of 372,730 tons. About 35% of all merchant shipping sunk by Japanese submarines during the war. All B-1 type submarines were lost during the conflict, except for I-36, which was scuttled off Goto Islands by the U.S. Navy on the 1st of April 1946.